Hello and welcome back to Minutes and Matters, your go to podcast series on corporate governance brought to you by 10 Leaves. I'm your host, Bhumika Arora, and in this series, we are breaking down the fundamentals and frameworks that shape governance in today's business world, especially in ADGM and DIFC. In our previous episode, we delved into the fundamentals of corporate governance, covering topics from transparency to the vital role of company secretaries. And today we are taking that conversation forward by turning the spotlight on the evolving role of the board and how modern governance is no longer just about compliance, but also about culture, resilience, and foresight. Joining me for this episode is Rohit Ghai, founder of 10 Leaves. Rohit, welcome to Minutes and Matters. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me, Bhumika. I like the name Minutes and Matters, and I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So, Rohit, let's dive right in. In our latest episode, we spoke a lot about board responsibilities, meetings, and regulatory expectations. But I'd like to start with a broader question for you. So, how has the role of the board evolved in recent years, especially in financial jurisdictions like ADGM and DIFC?
So, Bhumika, I'll put this in context with a very recent news of the tragic passing of industrialist in India,
Mm-hmm.
um Sanjay Kapoor. So,
Yeah.
you must have seen that once he passed away, and now the news has been filled with a lot of information on the possible succession planning,
Mm.
having how that process is going on. It's like playing out live as we speak right now.
Right.
Unfortunately, I mean, of course, I've not delved into that. I've not read about it in detail, but from what I understood, that at the center of this is a very large empire. I think 30,000 crores, or quite a lot of billions of dollars. And
Mm.
it all boils down now to how that succession planning, how the board or the people in charge, right? The board of directors are the ones in charge.
Mm.
And It's a public company, I assume. So a lot of focus is now on the board and how they handle these matters, right? And That's a good way to start off our conversation, because that's a live example of what's going on and what power the board holds, and what
Right.
responsibility, more importantly, when it comes down to transitions between companies and other strategic matters. Uh, another
Mm.
piece of uh, another piece of information, or let's say what we'd like to read about, is about the role of the board in the early stages of Apple Computer.
Mm.
The company which was founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So the there was a point wherein Steve was thrown out of his own company because of some inner workings of the board, and then how he successfully managed to come back. That makes a good reading. That's A lot of it can be found in the biography of Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. So that's another interesting case I found. Fascinated
Mm.
me how some things which we take for granted, as it's a board of directors, okay, we just put some names in, but how that how much responsibility that has, and as a consequence, how you conduct your operations, how you conduct your business goes a long way. Now, coming back to ADGM and DIFC, being financial free zones, and having financial institutions, and the role of the board is very, very critical,
Mm.
because the financial firms and good regulators always place a lot of emphasis on good corporate governance, because if your corporate governance is not up to the mark, there can arise a host of problems, at least from the market perspective. There are some in financial institutions. Obviously, there is the broader market. I mean, let's say the broader market goes down, if it's a bearish market or something of that sort. Those are external factors. Those are things which, maybe broadly speaking, are not in your control. The only things which is in your control are the investments you make or you advise on. But
Right.
internal matters are within your control, right? You can control how your board works. You can control what checks and balances you have, what kind of corporate governance pieces you put in place, so that there's a good functioning and independent functioning, and as a consequence, there's no problem from the inside. And this is what sorry, we're talking about today. The role of the board is, as especially in this part of the world, because in the scheme of things, these companies, these structures haven't been around for very long. When looking at it from the European side or the Indian side, these places have had this for many, many years. Europe, obviously, much more centuries, in fact.
Hmm.
So here it's relatively new. People have now started understanding, because a lot of this comes through precedents. Oh, there's a problem which happens. When you go back to the problem and you analyze it, you find out, oh, it was mismanaged from the inside, right? The controls were not there. The same person who was doing something was also checking himself. So then how is he
Correct.
ever going to
Hmm.
come out with the problem? So things
Hmm.
like this started getting a lot of emphasis, and now obviously DFSA and ADGM, their regulations have been built in a way that they encourage good corporate governance. And
Hmm.
I'm seeing an increasing role of independent directors, non-executive directors. What's the difference? Independent directors, one who doesn't have any vested interest in the company, either shareholding or pecuniary interest, or other than just setting fees or something of that sort. So that person is truly from the outside. And
Right.
when there is a board meeting, he or she is able to look at it from a third party perspective, and of course, suitably qualified and experienced. So
Hmm.
that helps a lot in understanding things which normally can be missed or be deliberately avoided, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
that independent board member perspective is very, very essential, and I've seen regulators starting to insist on that. The
Hmm.
chairperson, also I've seen now, by default, is going to be a non-executive director, someone who's not in the daily operation. So they can look at it once in a quarter and understand if there's any systemic issues or some things which need to be mended and things like that. So
Hmm.
yes, I've seen a lot of emphasis even on private firms. Of course, in public firms, majority of the directors have to be independent, but in private firms, I've seen this increasingly taking shape. And as a consequence, companies also trying to wake up now and saying, okay, you know what, this is something which needs to be done. You know,
Hmm. Hmm. Right. That's quite the evolution. Uh, Rohit, I've heard a phrase often repeated in governance circles, tone at
Mm.
the top. Like, can you explain what this really means and how boards and senior leadership can set a culture that promotes strong governance throughout the organization?
So, Bhumika, the problem in many things is, unfortunately, a lot of things get stuck as catchphrases, and there's nothing done beyond it.
Hmm.
Right. So
True.
this tone at the top is I'm sure, written in some McKinsey recommendation somewhere way back, and
Hmm.
then everyone and his uncle just took that and put it in their corporate governance manual, saying we'll set the tone at the top. Very nice. What happens next?
Right.
So, I mean, saying it is one thing, putting it in the manual is one thing, and how do you actually go ahead and promote that culture, which is
Hmm.
very, very difficult because, uh, you know, especially in financial firms, there's a lot of things to look out for. There's a lot of opportunities for firms to, let's say, go in a slightly different directions, operate on the border of what is considered, let's say, within the regulation and things like
Hmm.
that. So when you set a tone at the top, when you say, yes, this is how we have a strong emphasis on good corporate governance, and we have a strong emphasis on how we're supposed to run our organization ethically, and making sure that the customer is protected and things like that. These are very easy words to say, but very difficult things to do, because inherently there is a conflict on, do I make more money, or do I tell the customer that this is the best for him? And in many
Right.
places, that's not the same place, right? That's not the same. So it takes a lot of strength to believe in your offering and play the long game, saying that yes, there are opportunities for making money which are not strictly by the book. but we don't want to go there because we want to ensure that we make something where the customer trust builds over time. A market
Hmm.
trust, customer trust is built over time, and then we will get there. We will make a lot of money, but we're not in the short game. And when you decide that, when who decides that? The share stakeholders decide that, the shareholders, the directors decide that yes, this is how we're going to run our business. That,
Hmm.
in my opinion, is setting the tone at the top. Now, once you've understood this is the way I'm going to look at it, I'm not interested in short-term profit. I'm interested in profit, yes, but not at the cost of client losses or bad advice or whatever, or bordering on pushing my regulatory permission just to ensure that I can make more money, and things like that. So when you decide that at the top, that is setting the tone at the top. Now, how you conduct your business, how you go about advising your client, how you go about what kind of products you go about, suggesting to the client or managing for the client, all of that stems from this tone at the top saying, yes, this is how we're going to do it. What kind of reporting mechanisms would you have? How open are you? How transparent are you within the organization, outside the organization? How are you adhering to your reporting lines and ensuring that there is where the Chinese walls are supposed to be there, there are there. All of this stems from that one line saying we set it at the outset, and that's the way we are going to look at our business. And that's what I believe is setting the tone at the top. After that, everything kind of falls into place because now the rudder has been set. The ship can sail
Right.
in the right direction.
Right. Yeah. Uh, Very, very beautifully explained, Rohit. And it's very interesting because it shows that governance, it isn't only a system, it's also a mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Right.
and, and 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 and
Mm.
it should not be stuck to, I mean, a lot of people can come out with, nice corporate governance policies and procedures and a
Mm.
lot of text. Whereas all you need is bullet points. Very
Mm.
simply, DFSA, for instance, has authorized principles for authorized firms and principles for authorized individuals. 12 principles for authorized firms, 6 principles for authorized individuals. That itself is enough for you to understand if that's what you adhere to, you're a good market player, you're playing fair, you're not misleading customers and everything. All that's included in these principles, right? So it doesn't have to
Right.
be elaborate, 100-page manuals on corporate governance. It needs to be very simple things you can
Mm.
put on back in the day, this vision and mission. Nowadays, thankfully, it's not no more there because it just became too
Mm.
much of type. But this vision and
Mm.
mission used to be every organization you go, you'll have that small A4 size mission and mission put in that,
Mm.
frame and kept there. Your corporate governance should be able to fit, at least the governing principle should be able to fit on that. If you can fit it on that, be very clear. Everyone understands from the reception to the CEO can look at it and understand that's the message we are going to convey throughout the organization. And of course, the finer print can be in other things, but at least the basic 5, 10 points, commandments, if you may. That's how I would see that more effective than miles and miles of prose.
Mm. Right. Right. Okay. So, Rohit, now one area where governance is becoming increasingly crucial is risk management, especially
Mhm.
in regulated hubs like DIFC and ADGM. Boards are expected to actively oversee enterprise risk. So,
Mhm.
what does effective risk governance look like? And what can boards actually do to strengthen it?
So, Bhumika, again, see, unfortunately, risk governance in many cases, I'm talking about smaller organizations, mid and higher organizations, they have dedicated risk professionals and things like that. But there's the
Mm.
smaller ones who suffer because when you say, we have a risk offering, outsource risk officer, and we say, we'll help you with the risk, they say, oh, yeah, we'll take care of it. Does the
Mm.
DFSA require it? Does the FSRA require it? They recommend it, but it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. Someone else can do it. Okay, great. We'll get it done.
Mm.
So, and it never happens because then again, that's a lot of writing. So there's a risk policy. Everyone has a risk policy. You have a risk register. Everyone's got a risk register. How does that translate in practice is unfortunately not satisfactory. In fact, is far from satisfactory. And I've seen this in my experience, 20 years, and I've been in multiple board meetings. The funny part is, I'd say um, the newer firms, 60%, 70% of the time, the board meeting's done like, oh, let's have a board meeting today. Yes, are you free? Okay, let's call up the other guys. Are they free as well? Okay, we'll have it at 5 o'clock in the evening. That's
Right,
not a
right.
board meeting from
Mm,
any stretch of
mm,
imagination because
mm. It's not
what
even
is a
planned
board
well.
meeting supposed to do? It's not
Mm,
planned. There's no agenda. There's no
mm,
documentation sent in advance. Can the board members review it? Can they ask
mm.
questions? Can they challenge? None of the sort. So how do you
Right.
govern risk in this kind of a model? Because all you're doing is
Mm,
getting on the phone, ticking a box somewhere. No one's read that risk manual and laboriously, in some cases me, some cases our employees, we sit and we prepare these manuals, we prepare it after detailed risk analysis and give it to them, and no one bothers to read it, and they say, oh, you've taken care of everything. Yes, we have. Is there anything I need
mm,
to look at? Yeah, maybe these 2 points. Okay, great, we'll look at these 2 points, and can you please make sure they're rectified? Yeah, we'll help you with it. End of story. How
mm.
does a board how is the board supposed to look at this? The board is supposed to have a 21-day notice for the board meeting, and these are the documents which are going to be discussed. So the board members spend time and effort in looking through this
Right,
document, making
right.
notes, and the board meeting is supposed to deliberate that, saying, hey, you know what, I found this, I think that this part doesn't look right, can you please explain it to me? And that's where you have the executive sitting in the board meeting saying, hey, yes, we are handling this part and this is why this is. Now,
Mm,
it happens a lot in bigger firms, but the smaller firms are the irony of all this is the smaller firms have a bigger risk because you know that's where things start falling apart. Once you've gone to a sizable place or size, of course, I mean, obviously you have a lot of failures at that level as well, but at least have more
mm.
resources. Here,
Right.
people say, "Oh, I have limited resources. Let me dedicate that to business development exercises rather than corporate governance and risk management exercises, because that's a tick
Mm,
in the box for me right now. I don't want to spend more than I need to. I need to get clients first. But you get clients, you can't make very. I mean, you can't really take very good care of them unless you have good, strong fundamentals within. So unfortunately, that's where it's and that's a continuous struggle to make clients understand that this is important for you, uh, and this really matters. A classic example is business continuity (BCP), business continuity
mhm,
and disaster recovery planning. Many people didn't care about it, especially in the UAE till 2020, when all of a sudden COVID hits us, and now we
mm.
don't know what to do. So you sit and you go to that virtual or physical shelf and dust this BCP and say, okay, is there anything written for a pandemic situation? Oh, no, it hasn't. Nobody ever thought of it. Okay, let's
Right.
update this and now make a pandemic situation thing. So
Mm,
yeah, this
mm,
is, I feel there's a lot of work to be done in this area, and I'm
mm.
happy to have these discussions so that at least we can spread a bit of awareness on our little part, do our little part in trying to help.
Yeah, I think this awareness is it's important that this part is equally important to run a business.
So,
Hmm. Okay. Uh, Finally, with everything changing so rapidly from regulations to global risks, how can boards stay agile and forward thinking rather than being reactive? Especially when they're operating in a regulated and high expectation environment like ADGM or DIFC.
yeah, agility, forward thinking, all this comes from having the right information and putting it in the right perspective. So,
Hmm.
generally speaking, the members on the board in financial firms have a good level of experience. So that's part is taken care of. I have the experience to make an informed decision. Do you have the data to have make an informed decision? Do you have the
Right.
management information systems to make that decisions? Do you have it in the right time? If you're having a MIS once every quarter for some information which can affect your business every month, then that's a mismatch. Does the executive have that? And do you have an executive board member who's able to also look at that and see? And if required, call an ad hoc board meeting and say, hey, you know what? Once in a quarter, maybe, but this is an extraordinary case we need to look at. Let's have a board meeting now and try to decide on this strategic part of it. So, AI being a
Hmm.
classic example.
Right.
Now, everyone and his uncle wants, oh, AI is a buzzword. Everyone's talking about it, making images, etc. Great. How is that
Hmm.
going to affect my business? Have you sat and have you made a strategic, uh, have you put some strategic thought to it? Have you engaged with experts and said, here's an AI expert or AI transformation expert, and see, first of all, how does this affect our business? How do you think our business will play out in the next 3 years so we're not caught out? And you engage these consultants who are able to then look at your business and give you some advice, which then obviously can be deliberated within the board, and they then have a strategic initiative to tackle that or whatever.
Hmm.
So I would say when boards are constantly looking at their business and the macroeconomic environment and trying to understand how that will affect, and that involves not only the internal resources but also external resources. Do you have the right advisors, especially in fast growing markets and fast growing businesses, in businesses which are susceptible to AI and can be disrupted by AI? Do you have on a board level access to advisors who can help you understand the risk, quantify it, and then propose mitigation measures or something of that sort? So I would say that's a forward-thinking board who's able to do that on a regular basis rather than come in together, tick a box, and then say, okay, fine, we did the board meeting. When are we meeting next quarter? Great, bye bye. That's not the way
Hmm.
I would approach it. So forward-thinking boards have to be there, and that's how you are not reactive. It's very difficult to react once the ship has sailed. Once your industry is disrupted, now what? You're just picking up the pieces.
Hmm. Right.
Think
Right.
of BlackBerry. BlackBerry in 2008,
Hmm.
Nokia in 2008, 2007, 2008. If you were around there to read those newspapers and those magazines, BlackBerry has 50% or 60% of the corporate market. Who can shake it? Nobody can shake it. 2008,
Hmm.
2010, it's I think dead already. Why? Because the
Hmm.
board didn't look at the iPhone and didn't understand the winds of change are coming in where people don't want a keyboard, whereas their USP was the keyboard. I love the keyboard, by the way. BlackBerry's keyboards are fantastic.
Yes. Yes. Same. Same.
You know, but then
Using
you
that
have a
keyboard
you
was
have a
super fun. Yeah. Yeah.
it was nice, and BlackBerry BBM was like the what do I say, snob factor. I've got BlackBerry
Yes.
Messenger,
Yes. Hmm.
and in one year, that's bye the whole industry. How does it work?
Hmm.
Nokia, uh, undisputed leader. You never think Nokia would ever, the phones they have across the board. They have the basic phone which you can throw at somebody and still doesn't break, and then you have the high-end phone which you can also throw at somebody and still wouldn't break. And
Right.
and then you have this iPhone which comes on, and people say, "Where is the keyboard? This is an absolutely nonsensical product." Right? That's what it came
Hmm.
out at that time. They said, "Wow, it looks nice and everything, but it's not practical."
True.
What were the
True.
boards at that time thinking? And I mean, did they really sit and look at it and have some expert level opinions and take it more seriously, or did they think it doesn't make a difference and then cut to 2010 when the iPhone? Now today, of course, everything's an iPhone. At least the same philosophy: full screen,
Hmm.
thinner
Hmm.
bezels, more screen, bigger things, and things like that. So again, I mean, we diverted from there, but I mean, the point
Yeah.
being that
Hmm.
you can get disrupted, at whatever stage of your business, and some things you can't really uh, account for, or some things you can't really anticipate. But what you can, to the best of your
Hmm.
ability, if you're
Hmm.
able to do it, that really matters. And this is where forward-thinking boards are able to be more proactive in being keeping the ear to the ground, engaging the right advice, and ensuring that they are ahead of the curve and not reacting to what happened.
Right. Rohit, I think that was an incredibly rich discussion that we had today. Uh, Thank you so much for sharing these insights.
No worries at all. I mean, I like talking about these matters because unfortunately I can't talk to many clients about these matters. They're like, oh
I,
yeah,
I
we'll
hope
we'll
I
talk
hope
about
they're
it
listening
later.
to us.
I
Right,
mean,
right.
if they don't, I'll just send them a link to the podcast and say, here's some information for you which can make you more money. But you got to wait for the last 5 minutes. So maybe
Uh,
they'll listen to the
yes,
whole thing and then realize, who knows.
yes. Right. But it's definitely clear that corporate governance today is about much more than just compliance. Anyway, okay.
Absolutely.
So, yes. So, we'll wrap up our episode here. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning into Minutes and Matters. We'll be back with more episodes exploring the ideas and issues that matter in modern governance. Until next time, this is Bhumika Arora signing off from Minutes and Matters, brought to you by 10 Leaves, where governance meets clarity.